So hi, this is the Innovation Conversation, and once again, Tom Furphy and I have found ourselves in the same place at the same time, so rather than doing it by email, we're going to do it live with you. And we're actually in Los Angeles, and we are attending at and presenting at the Retail Tomorrow conference, immersion conference that is run by GMDC. And it's been really, really interesting. I mean, yesterday we went to Google. I mean, that was amazing.
The Spruce Goose Hangar.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary the way they kind of looked at this and have created a place that just feels so creative.
Totally, absolutely.
Looking at really interesting retail. Right now we're coming to you from MRAD, and MRAD is an architectural design firm, and it's fascinating. I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but when I have neither the skill nor the mathematics way of looking at things. I really admire architects. I mean, I think that the way they envision things and create it is extraordinary.
The way they envision, the way that you hear them talking about, envisioning a space and what they do, to create it, and these guys apply it across so many different places, right? From retail to home design to, it's just amazing the stuff that they do. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. And in some ways, it must be, in its own way, similar to kind of what you do, in the sense that when you look at an empty space, which is the internet, and create a site, a website. I mean, when you were at Amazon, they didn't have CPG, they didn't have Subscribe and Save, and in its own way, you were creating architecture.
We were. That's actually a really good point. But I think what we have done, and we've done this at Amazon and since, is we actually look at where are the empty spaces and the unserved spaces in the consumer value proposition, right? So as a shopper, as somebody living their daily lives, what are the things that we could serve better through a use of technology and new businesses, right? So at Amazon, when we built the CPG business, when we built Subscribe and Save, when we did things like Dash and the replenishment services and whatnot, those were solving needs that customers had, right? And so we really kind of focused on those. And so whenever we look at, where are we going to invest in or build a business, it's where is there an open space where there's a real market need, we can identify that pain, and we can construct something that will not only serve that pain, but will raise the bar for a long time coming, and will be really, really defensible.
That's architecture, right? I mean,
it really is.
These guys look at a corner in a city, or they look at an empty field, or they look at a side of a mountain, or they look at a bluff by the ocean, and they see the possibilities that are there that nobody else sees.
Absolutely.
I just really admire that. I mean, my total skill is being able to write a reasonable sentence.
You do that reasonably well.
But so people who can see empty spaces and fill them in that way, I just really admire them. Anyway, that wasn't even what we're going to talk about today in the Innovation Conversation. We want to talk a little bit about influencers, because clearly influencers, there were a couple of sessions here at Retail Tomorrow about influencers. But it was interesting because it was happening at a time when influencers, at least in one case, were not getting a particularly good name. And that's because of the daughter of Lori Loughlin, the actress. She was at USC. She was very public in social media about she really didn't care about going to class. She just wanted to have a good time. And she was described by a number of brands as being a really important influencer.
With well over 1 million followers, right?
Unbelievable. And listen, I know I'm getting old and cranky about this stuff, but I worry about the fact that their established brands, and there were some big ones, are building their marketing foundations to some degree on influencers who are good at nothing other than influencing. And when a public relations problem strikes, suddenly you have a problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think any time that you're marketing and you bet on person or a clear concept that you're going to put your brand behind, you're taking a big risk on that, right? Now, in a traditional sense, maybe it's an actor, or maybe it's an athlete over time, or maybe it's a character you make up, like we heard about Mr. Whipple in the old days, right? Don't squeeze the Charmin. Super old classic.
But that's different. Because they can control almost everything.
Absolutely. Well, yes. And,
if he gets arrested for something horrible, you can't control that. But
right,
or
a doping scheme in the Olympic, or to win Tour de France's or whatever, right? So it's absolutely risky. I mean, I think it's high risk, high reward, right? And I think the jury's out on when a company bets on an influencer and the influencer goes sideways for whatever reason. Is the company given a pass? Right? I mean, maybe the company's ultimately given. Does it really hurt the company? I think it hurts them in the short term,
Right.
Right, because they get caught up in this. But what you saw, especially in the with Olivia, was OJ
Yeah, Jade or something.
Jade.
Yes.
Oh, Jade. Yeah, whatever.
Olivia Jade.
Olivia Jade.
I take a certain amount of pride in not
Not quite
knowing
knowing
who
exactly. We're not her target. Blue. But you know, you saw the big companies that were attached to her quickly detach,
Right.
Right, and so I think you have to have an exit strategy,
Right.
Right. So yeah, clearly there was benefit in following these influencers, and we've seen case study after case study this week of influencers really moving markets
Right.
toward products. You look at the Kardashian Jenner family and what they're doing, and they're actually within their family building some really valuable brands.
They are. Again, I'm getting cranky about this stuff, but I've always felt that I don't know. In so many ways, there are people in our society today who get famous for being famous.
Oh, absolutely.
And I guess that troubles me a little bit. But maybe that's just where culture's going. And
It's
there's nothing
sad.
to do about it.
It is a little sad, but that is absolutely where culture's going.
But it was interesting because one of the things we saw here at Retail Tomorrow, and this will be on a podcast that I did from Retail Tomorrow, is there's a company called Rival Theory, and I'm fascinated by the idea that they are able to create through machine learning and artificial
Big-time
intelligence, able to create people. Now, in their case, what they're doing is they are working with established personalities like Tony Robbins is the one that came up, who can actually give you advice. Right? It's like the Doctor in Star Trek Voyager. It becomes holographic in a lot of ways, and able to give you advice based on everything Tony Robbins has ever written or said, and this avatar, for lack of a better term, learns.
Well, we just looked
better.
at it.
Right.
It is him.
Right.
It looks exactly like him. It's super high res. They take hundreds of thousands of images of him over time and construct this virtual Tony Robbins. And then they take all of the advice, books, everything that they can capture that he's rendered advice in the past, and they put that all together in an AI database. Basically, they create the data structures so that when you ask this virtual Tony Robbins something, or this virtual Tony Robbins is conversing or espousing some advice, and you interact back with him, they're able to take that machine learning and respond in a very calculated way based on these millions of responses that he's made in the past. And it's really accurate because you have all of this data that says, if you ask this to Tony, he's going to respond this way. It's pretty amazing the way it works.
Forgive the noise in the background because they're all working. What's interesting about that to me is it seems to me that one of the things that we'll also be able to do is they will be able to create fictional characters who will be able to be influencers, very brand specific, very targeted to the people who are watching it, and they're not going to have to worry about public relations backslash because they're virtual.
Absolutely. Well, you think too. I mean, taking that that concept into things like healthcare, taking that concept into things like cooking and helping me. It's pretty impressive what they're going to be able to do.
Well, I'm curious. So you used to be at Amazon. I got to believe that somewhere in Seattle or Virginia, not New York, Jeff Bezos has got 1,000 people trying to figure out, I'm using the number 1,000, trying to figure out a physical representation for Alexa.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah, and we've always talked
And
about
Alexa will
Amazon,
learn.
and they're 7 to 10 years ahead
Right.
in their innovation, so they clearly have to be doing this.
And that's something I think that retailers need to think about. Because again, I mean, the example I always use is, you walk into the kitchen, if you've got Martha Stewart, she's there, you can say, Martha, I want to make seafood risotto. And Martha says, ooh, I got a great recipe. I'll walk you through the process of cooking it. And by the way, would you like me to order the items you need for this recipe from whoever the local grocery is? But if Amazon's got the deal, she's going to order it from Amazon.
Right. Well, that means the rest of retail just has to be thinking about this and be ready to play with it. They don't have to have the answer now, but they have to be ready to play with it.
And I think that's a key component of what, frankly, you and I try and do here, but also part of the whole Retail Tomorrow thing. It's thinking about this stuff. It's trying to be a little bit ahead of the curve, even if you're not implementing, certainly being aware of where all these changes are going to take place.
Absolutely.
Anyway, well, this is the Innovation Conversation, and as always, the Innovation Conversation will continue.